So, I've been interested in tabletop role-playing games for a while now, but haven't gotten into a game yet until recently. Most of the ones I've gotten into are play-by-post, so we'll see how that goes, but for one of them, I've created a druid character. In D&D, druids have the ability to transform into different animals, which is notoriously difficult for players, especially new players, due to how many possibilities and options you have with that ability. So I figured I needed something to help simplify and also help me just choose, like randomize my Wildshape choices, basically. And so I looked at some of the helper apps, didn't really find one that fit, and realized that I kind of want to make my own. So let's make it. I've already done a lot of the groundwork these past couple days, as I found that there are 105 entries, according to at least one source, and there's probably a lot more, especially in homebrew stuff, so I mostly just use the stuff from this website to get these, avoiding things like swarms and things that are more legacy related. And so yeah, I've listed down a bunch of different stats in a bestiary. I've also copied the decanter and random functions, and have also copied it, and have copied the stuff from the topography video, episode 2, and also reconfigured that into a more useful format, which I'll put on screen now. And basically my idea is that, well, the first button will be to switch between Moon Druid, which is what I have, and regular Druids, as they have different rules. And then the other buttons are to change your levels, and then you can select like different terrain options and different functions like combat, spying, or speed. I also listed down the exact rules about each thing, basically what level they can be and any restrictions, basically. And I've also copied the increase and decrease level functions, but have not added them into the commands yet. I only have the default test command. So that's where I am right now. I was thinking of doing this as one take, but then I realized that's probably going to take a long time, so I'm just going to cut here, and we'll come back in a moment. Okay, I've added in a few things. So the main thing is this Druid config function. Basically looks at these restrictions and imports them into the program, basically. So I'll just run through that quickly. First, it grabs the type of Druid and the level from the interface. Then it checks if it's a Moon Druid and puts the challenge rating and restrictions set up that way. Otherwise, it's set up normally. And then you get to where you clear the list of, like the sub list of what's been chosen, so that you can make a new one. Set I to 0 and run through all the full bestiary list, basically. And yeah, and then you get so the first if statement just checks for elementals, which specifically is a Moon Druid level 10 thing, so it checks for that. And if you meet that criteria, then that gets added. And then otherwise basically checks if it's under the max challenge rating, and then checks for swim speed, which if it has a swim speed restriction, it also has a fly speed restriction, so I just combine those with an and statement, and then check for flying and check otherwise. That's the main thing. And then I've also actually made those buttons functional. Basically, so change type function checks if it's on Moon, and if it's on Moon, switch to regular, otherwise check with Moon. And this is done specifically with an else statement, because this way I only have to check if Moon, and then if something messes up for some reason, then I don't have to worry about it breaking the program. It just says it's not moon, therefore it's regular, kind of a thing. So that's that idea. And the other part is the increase and decrease levels. I just imported the correct labels and also set this to 3, basically so it can only be 2 or higher, just because that's when the Wildshape kicks in, so you can't really be level 1 and actually get anything out of this thing that way. And also I didn't set a level 20 restriction because the play-by-post thing does allow for higher levels with some custom stuff. I'm not really sure how that works, but figure that might be useful to just leave open. And I mean, you have to deliberately go up past level 20 so you know what you're doing. And otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much that so far. So I guess the next thing will be getting this list to display in the window, and then also figuring out how to make it randomized. Yeah, I'll start with making it randomized, and then after that, I'll look at how to optimize for specific conditions, like I have like combat, spying, or speed. So I'll figure out those things after this. But first, getting the list of recommendations to appear. See you then. That was actually easier than I expected. Basically, to reshuffle the list, all that was needed was this random.shuffle function to basically shuffle the list, and then I added a function to put the top 10 of the shuffled list into the display. I'll show that momentarily. I am also thinking that I'll add more information into the display, like the AC hit points and stuff like that, just so it's easier to make decisions that way. But for right now, I kind of want to go over my plan for how to sort lists. Okay, I had to change a few things and move some stuff around because I kept getting some weird results. But it's done now, or at least the basic math part of it is done. So I made a sorting function to to make lists for health, spy ability, and movement. And basically, it would use the take from the chosen list, so it's not constantly taking from the full list. Just hopefully that will make it go a little bit faster that way. Anyways, then then there's all of the different variables. I added also con for conspicuousness because when I was doing the stealth stuff, it kept telling me the best creature for stealth was a giant wolf spider. No. So yeah, I had to do that, and also had to completely change around a bunch of these stealth parameters. Just played around with that on a graphing calculator to basically make sure I didn't get wolf spider. I think I've got it working now, so yeah. Basically, these are the different abilities. I added this move sign function just to make function, I guess you can call it, just to make sure that it, like, if you're choosing a land animal, you aren't picking something that only has a swimming speed and stuff like that. And right now it just prints the list. I'll put a picture of that on the side. And now the next part will be to implement it so it shows up, or basically so that it gets added into your top 10 list, kind of a thing. My plan for this is that I've added in as well these another set of buttons for one percentile, for basically percentiles, or rather quartiles, I should say. Name might need to change that name, but yeah, basically the idea being that it will find that if you're select like first quartile, second quartile, or third quartile, and basically it'll basically run through the list and say, okay, either you hit 10, basically, yeah, runs down the list of that's created by this function and says, okay, here's all of the ones that have a value above that particular quartile, or 10 if there's less than 10 of those, and then basically just uses that data to then output the correct creatures from the shuffled list. That's the plan anyway. We'll see how that works. Okay, I think I've got it. Took a lot of maneuvering stuff, but yeah, basically, well, okay, so in the stat maker section, I've added in, basically made it so that it requires the variables for the 3 types of button, which type of terrain you're on, what your use is, and which quartile you're using. Then I have this thing which sets the quartiles to Q, and then also adding in speeds here just so that that's set, and then use here, basically, your different uses here, which then tells it to go to the health list. And these parts are more for just troubleshooting, just to make sure that I've actually got it all working properly. So I'll actually comment those out as well, and then and so there's that part, and then you call the stat sort function with this, which tells it to use which list to use, and the Q on here, which then hops over to here. You divide this by 4 because it's not really quartile, it's quantile, which means that you can do any percentage. So in this case, since I have it as 1, 2, 3, or 4, 1, 2, and 3, I just divide that by 4 on here. Then you have your sort list clear, and then basically this part just goes through the whole list and checks, and again, this is another troubleshooting line. And then after that, it checks if it's less than 10, and then it adds blanks, so that if I end up having not enough, it doesn't throw an error when I'm doing the list, which I've now switched to sort list so that it's easier that way. And despite what it says, it's not actually sorted, it's taking from the shuffled list, but since it is technically taking just the top ones from the category, it's technically sorted, so I just called it that. So yeah, and then up here where I used to just call the stat maker function here, well, first of all, to set these 3, I made another list called pick list, and basically set those as the 3 numbers. I also have it so that if there's a 0 in that list, it assumes that there's nothing, or that you don't want to sort that way, and so it's just basically here it just does random, which that's another troubleshooting thing, and says, and basically just clears it and then just adds the top 10 from the shuffled list, and then calls the top 10 maker function. And so, for instance, I have it right now set as 1, 2, 3, so I'll run module, which will probably not show up on your side, I don't know, but I'll paste that picture in the other side of things. I'll just take print screen of that right now so I don't lose that. And so basically what 1, 2, 3 means in this case is that you're doing speed 1, which means that you're looking at land speed, then use 2, which is spying, and quartile 3, which means sort of type down. As you can see, giant wolf spider is, well, actually I'll check that quickly. I assume it's still there. It usually is when I've cross-tested this. Yep, it is still there, but at least you get more reasonable stuff, and that's why I did as a top 10 list instead of just telling you which one to pick, otherwise you'll get some weird answers. So yeah, that's that set up, and the reason why I did it as a list now is because I think that'll make it easier for me to work with the buttons, and that's going to be the next and I hope final step. See you then. Okay, I think this will work. I haven't quite tested it fully, but I have checked that the button seems to be working, so we'll see how that goes. I'll update this if there's any changes. But basically what I've done is for each of the 3 sets of buttons, basically using that pick list thing from earlier, I've set it up such that, for example, this is the 3rd set of buttons, so this is pick list 2, because of course 0 and computers and all that. Basically, if the first button is clicked, and if it's selected, then it basically deselects it, so it turns it blank and turns it to 0. Whereas if it's not, then it will color in the button 1 and blank out 2 and 3 and set it to 1, basically shifting it so that it's at 1, and then you can turn it off and on from there. And then I'll demo that in a moment. And I've basically done that with the 3 buttons here, and then I copied the same code to the other ones, so the movement and combat ones. And I kind of did the same thing with the land, sea, and air stuff. However, I also added in these if statements. Basically, if the level is too low, it won't do anything. Instead, it'll just return and and not do anything because you can't click it, basically. And then I've also added in this bit of code to the decrease level thing to also deselect, basically actually this should not be 1, this should be 2, so that if it's 3, then it goes to 0, and then here if it's 1, it then goes to 0, kind of a thing. And actually I should also, technically I don't need to do that because if it's below that, it can't really do that. But I'll add that in anyway, just for extra redundancy, because that never hurts. And it's easier, again, to have a system that does too much and not have to troubleshoot than having to troubleshoot, because that's always a pain. So yeah, that's basically the changes. We'll see if it works. Okay, so as you can see, I have it all set up, basically. This is the initial screen, and okay, I can't move my little recording thing. That's unfortunate since it's right under the buttons, but yeah, basically right now nothing's selected, so it should give a random list when I click go, just of anything, like it should be 0.25 or lower. Just check that. And if I switch to moon, I should get things up to 1. So in this case, nothing changed, but here you have 1. Okay. Now also, because it's level 2, can't click sea or air, you can however select land, and this won't change anything because you need to have all 3 selected. So I'll go land, spying 3, and that should bring up, basically, these are the 10 that meet that criteria, so kind of whatever you do, it'll end up, well actually, that's what it needs for regular, I guess. So yeah, like here, if this was regular, this tiger wouldn't appear because that's 1. So that's interesting. So yeah, you get a bit more options. And again, you see wolf spider. Yeah, giant spiders for spying. Anyway, yeah, but giving this list of 10, then you can pick one that's more reasonable, basically. So yeah, you get a couple loops of that. Now, I can also decrease the tightness of it, so maybe make it 2, and then you get more different things. That. So there's that option. Then if I increase to level 4 and make it C, because that works now, and also if I decrease level, that blanks out, and then I get whatever kind of a thing again. So 4C, go. And now it's all things with, well, this should be all things with swimming speeds. So like, yeah, well, okay, yeah, like, you still have things like the Almirage, which doesn't have a swimming speed, so that's good to know, but it does input more things with swimming speeds. I guess it makes it more likely. I might change that in the future, but that might be another video. We'll see how the timing is on this at the moment. And also I'll just bring it up again, because yeah. Okay, and then I'll also switch to combat. Yeah, like now, like you have Reef Shark and stuff like that. I can also bring this up a bit more, and now I can click air. And again, no flying things, so that's definitely something I'm going to have to fix. But also if I increase the level, and also I'll turn these off now. Now I get also like level 2s and stuff, because that's a level that you're at now. I was curious if I can get the option for elemental. Perfect. So yeah, I think that issue of things not being the right speed kind of thing is going to be something I'll have to investigate. But other than that, I think it's good. I'll see you in the next one, or the next part of this when I fix that issue. Now the problem, turns out, if you are using this NumPy quantile, and most of your data is 0, it will just return 0 and use that. So I ended up basically having zeros allowed. So basically I've made an error catch function that basically if the x that you're comparing it to is greater than 0, and then it runs through and just picks the lowest non-zero value in that list. So yeah, that's should be working. I'll demo that now. Okay, so let's try this again. Specifically doing this, C, spying, and 3. There we go. Now these are all things that actually can swim. That's much better. And similarly, if I go up to here and do air combat, let's do that. And that's now all things that fly. Much better. And I can also just turn this off now, and we now get all things. And also, these are all 1 and lower, because that's what regular is. Switch to moon, and you get more things, including like elementals, which if I do air combat 3, there. Okay, and then if I bring it below level 8, air turns off, so now if I click go, it'll just do everything. So specify C, and now it's all ocean stuff. Down below level again, C turns off. I'll make it land combat, and now, there we go. So yeah, I think that's pretty much where I wanted it. Yeah. I really need to figure out an outro for this thing,